Big O Tires is rolling out Black Friday deals now to December 8th. Get limited-time Black Friday savings on oil changes, brakes, car batteries, and more. You'll also save big on tires. How big? Buy 3 select tires, get 1 free with paid installation, including brands like Nitto and Cooper. Get 4 tires, but pay for only 3. Right now at Big O Tires during Black Friday deals only through December 8th. Interest-free financing available too. For your nearest participating location, go to bigotires.com.
Big O Tires, just outside of Liberty, was the site of our Facebook Live discussion on the Chiefs that took place Thursday, November 7th. The big topic, what's Patrick Mahomes' status for Sunday's game at Tennessee? Herbie Teope, Sam McDowell, Sam Mellinger, and Vahe Gregorian weighed the pros and cons of Mahomes' possible availability. We covered plenty more topics, including the Chiefs' defense, the improved defense, and stick around for Where the Rubber Meets the Road segment, where we project who might or needs to have a big game this weekend. Thanks to Beth Welsh for producing the Facebook Live, and to SportsBeat KC producer Leah Becerra for putting together today's podcast. We'll be back on Friday talking sports in Kansas City. Guys, I hold in my hand the injury report. Well, it's actually a blank sheet of paper, but let's pretend it's the injury report from yesterday, where it says Patrick Mahomes, full practice participant. That was some news, wasn't it? So it's news that he practiced without restriction yesterday, but what does it mean? Does this mean he's going to play on Sunday at Tennessee, Herbie?
We'll probably find the answer to that on Friday for sure, but it's certainly pointing up. I think Mike Vrabel, Titans head coach Mike Vrabel, said it best. He got some pretty good air on his post-game celebration after the Chiefs with the thrilling game-winning kick from Harrison Butker against the Vikings on Sunday. It's like he got some pretty good air. So the celebration probably led us to believe, because we actually kind of mentioned that on Sunday. He looked very good moving around, and the fact that he put in a full practice, first time since he suffered the injury, is a very good sign. The Titans will see him, and the Titans, Mike Vrabel told us that they are preparing for Patrick Mahomes and not Matt Moore.
Well, you kind of have to prepare for Mahomes anyway, because if you prepare for Mahomes and you get Matt Moore, you've probably over-prepared.
Yeah, that is very true.
Shoot for the stars and land on the cloud, right? Can we also just step back just for a quick second, just think about how ridiculous it is. He's watching film to see the celebration and how high he's jumping. That's some scout right there.
They leave nothing unturned.
So silly.
It's like 5 coaches crowded around the screen. Look at this.
Yeah, he's playing.
So Herbie, what else do we have to? You mentioned the Friday practice report is the most important one. But there are 2 more, right? There's a Thursday, there's today's, and Fridays. What would we need to see Mahomes as a full participant each day for us to think he's going to play on Sunday?
Not necessarily, because I specifically asked Coach Reed on Monday, does he have to continue or does he have to put in a full practice to play? And Reed basically said no, because he knows the scheme, he knows the players, and so Mahomes is kind of like a plug-and-play quarterback for Andy Reid. And I don't think necessarily if he's limited Thursday, limited Friday, that's not necessarily a bad sign for Mahomes, because the Chiefs do want to take it easy on him. Get him out there, see what he does on Wednesday. If you're satisfied with that, you can afford to hold back with this guy because he knows the scheme.
Look, I think we can assume he's not going to be 100% the rest of the season. I mean, he's probably going to need minor surgery on the knee after the season anyway, if he doesn't get hurt, no matter when he starts playing. But it goes back to what we've been asking ourselves for the last couple of weeks. The way the division is unfolding, the AFC West, is it wise to wait a little bit longer? And with the bye coming up the week after next, should the Chiefs entertain the idea of not playing him when he seems 95% ready?
I do feel like they should entertain the idea, but I also feel like it's so hard for us to know where the sort of the breakdown of this is. We sort of joked about this the other day, but when they talk about what the doctor might say to them, they'll say they won't play Patrick unless they say Patrick's good to go. What we don't know is, do they say, well, if he waits another week, he would be better to go?
Right.
We don't know that, and they're not going to include that, and that's sort of left to guesswork. One of the numbers that was out there, and we may have discussed this after the game the other night, was the idea that if he had played under 21 days, right? That was going to be 40 to 50% chance of re-injury then. Now, with the magic 21 day
He wakes up
thing,
on day 21.
Shazam,
all is cured.
It's 10 to 15%. And then, so part of the question is, if those numbers are accurate, and our resident Twitter medical degree guy, Sam McDowell, actually I'm teased, but you made a lot of calls on this, and I think you know this better than anybody probably in this group. What's the difference between that 10 to 15% that we think it is now, and can it go down to 2%, in another week or two? I'd rather see 2% if we knew that.
The percentage is one of the few things I didn't include that story for the specific reason is I talked to 4 or 5 guys and got 4 or 5 different answers on that.
So I'm glad we brought it up.
Yeah.
Debunked it.
But I still kind of chuckled though when that report came out as far as before 20 days it's a major risk, but once day 21 comes, then you can just throw them out there because first, it depends on the severity of the injury, obviously, and then they're going to wrap it up tight as can be to try and basically preserve the kneecap in place to get it where it doesn't move. And the other thing I think that's in play here is how healthy is the other leg with the ankle. Because if you're favoring the injury on the knee side because your ankle is still hurting, to me that's a big factor in play that maybe is not being discussed as probably as much as it should be, because you've got to have that leg healthy so you can favor it a little bit if needed.
Yeah.
To that ankle, though, if you notice with the injury reports, they no longer list the ankle as part of this injury. So once that happens, then he has to be pretty much healed there.
Does anybody think that ankle was a factor in the quarterback sneak?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it's possible to say, one way or the other. I wouldn't think that it would be, but who knows? This whole thing about the knee is like, I feel like this whole situation is like begging for hot takes, right? The Chiefs are being reckless or, whatever. And I keep coming back to the fact that as much as we all know, like what this guy means to the Chiefs, to Kansas City, like all that stuff, the Chiefs live this. And with this, and not just that, but the specific situation of he's got a $200 to $400 million contract, whatever it's going to be, right after the season, just sitting there waiting for him. It is hard to imagine a situation where team and player are both more motivated and incentivized to be sure. You mentioned the division race. They've got a little bit of a cushion. They have every reason in the world to be cautious. It seems like they're not being cautious at all. But I keep going back to they have every reason to be cautious. So those doctors have to see something, And I think you're right. It's a good point to bring up about he's not going to be 100% probably the rest of the year. I don't think that's as important as if and you just said this, would he be better to go, right? Like if he's going to be making up numbers here, but 90% in Nashville, and then if you waited until Mexico City, he'd still be 90, and there's no elevated risk of re-injury, then what are we waiting for, But if there is, then you got to wait. I just find it hard to believe that in this situation, either player or team is going to risk, or doctor, given. How about being the doctor and saying, yeah, he can go, and then he screws up his knee on Sunday? Like that's not good for your career.
Because the one thing about this is a re-injury of the knee, because it's a little bit more fragile now than it would be if he had had the surgery. It does make you a little bit more susceptible to other damage that would happen if you dislocated it a second time.
Are you talking like ACL?
Yeah, it might not just be the same injury. Now, if you had the same injury and that's it, then you just get the surgery and you're going to be back by training camp next year. Everything's fine. But the other ligaments in there, because of the way that the kneecap would be a little bit more susceptible to moving around, might be a little bit more at risk.
Have you guys found it interesting that the Chiefs have never assigned a timetable for his return? They've done that for other injuries, but not for this one. And as soon as it happened, and we saw Mahomes walking off the field at Denver, our opinion was shaped by that. He's going to be back soon. It was disaster, and then 10 minutes later, he's going to be back sooner than we all think. But the fact that the Chiefs just have never assigned a timetable. In fact, Andy Reid yesterday, timetables, I hate timetables.
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from.
I don't know about timetables. But it's kept us all guessing and having to do some reporting that you depend on the team to provide, right? 3 to 5 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, sort of thing. But in this case, we just haven't had any sort of sign from the Chiefs that when he would be back, if he would be back, except for the injury report and what sort of practice reports we have. I just found that kind of curious about the Chiefs.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because an injury to this particular player is they haven't had a player like this. And this is the first time a player like this has been injured. So
that's all true officially and publicly. I think there's leaks, from whose camp or whatever. I mean, we've kind of been thinking that the Titans game was a soft target for a couple of weeks now.
I think that's right.
But I do think you bring up a good point in that I do think that they are particularly sensitive. That's probably not the right word, but what happened with Eric Berry, he's day to day, and what happened with Justin Houston. Was that the year before?
No, it was last couple of years.
Yeah. There's some history, there's some context where you don't want to say 3 weeks and then it's 4, or whatever. Or
3 weeks becomes 13.
Yeah, or even 5 weeks and then it becomes 3, and then you're accused of being reckless. Like I just, it's in their interest. It's always in their interest to not give information about injuries, right? But particularly now for that player, for sure.
I feel like, now that I think of it, now that you brought it up, I feel like they've been somewhat that way with almost everything this season. Like, for instance, Eric Fisher. I mean, he's going on 6-7 weeks out now. I don't know what time frame they ever assigned to it, but this certainly seems much longer than I would have expected.
Well,
just an example.
And to speak to Eric Fisher, he did come back to practice.
Yeah.
And I think he's been, and Andy Reid's been asked a couple of different times, did Eric Fisher, was there a setback with Eric Fisher? And, Andy Reid didn't say yes, but the answer was yes, essentially.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, we pulled back on him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, so that I think that's at least with in Eric Fisher's case, there has been a setback, and we don't know. A couple of folks have asked us about Eric Fisher, and hey, I didn't mention this at the top. Please send us your question and comments. We'll get to them as often as we can. Jeremy Barnes says he agrees with Sam. I don't know exactly what he agreed with you about, and I don't know which Sam.
I'm sure so.
And Sam McDowell is certain that it's him. So,
Jeremy's a smart guy. I'm sure it was something to say.
either way, Jeremy's on point here. Fisher is one that will continue to be out this week. But while we start talking about quarterbacks, and we're projecting what might happen Sunday at Tennessee, let's at least acknowledge Matt Moore and the job that he's done over the last couple weeks. Moore, in playing 2.5 games, has played more than any reserve quarterback for Andy Reid in the 6+ seasons that Reid has coached the Chiefs. It's only been one game for Chase Daniel in a couple of years, and Nick Foles just one start, and Mahomes started the end of the 2017 season. Matt Moore's had to go for 2.5 games and did it without the advantage of training camp, OTAs, all the stuff that the other guys had. Nick Foles didn't have a full training camp, but he was there for a few weeks of training camp and then a couple preseason games. So. But you spent time with Matt Moore yesterday, wrote about him today. In today's Star. I think kudos to Matt Moore.
Absolutely, and I think it's a little bit underappreciated. I mean, we do see other forces kind of rallying here, right? The defense has been better and better. I think the guys that need to shine on offense have done that with him and for him, but. Look at his numbers, but also I think in talking to a couple teammates yesterday, like Austin Ryder, he used the term that he has a sixth sense with the offensive line. His presence has been good, and that's hard to do when you just show up in late August, early September, and by the way, you haven't played since 2017. Right. But I really credit the Chiefs for whatever it was they saw in him and ultimately decided on Chad Henne, that they must have felt strongly about what he could bring, and so strongly that, a year and a half later, they decided he's the guy to go to right away. So that last drive also, I think, showed us a little microcosm of his time, right? He gets swamped on the first play. Yeah. Probably needed to find a way to dump it, although he basically got the ball and got hit.
Right.
So now, you're kind of thinking, well, that they're gonna stall and this is going to overtime. But big pass to Travis Kelce, as you noted in one of our discussions, 17 yards there. And then a play that reflected a certain amount of chemistry with Tyreek Hill coming across the middle. That was the pattern Tyreek was supposed to run, but understanding the situation, understanding the blitz, Tyreek sped up the pattern was the term Matt used. And Matt anticipated that and threw it there, and then Tyreek made a big play. But that made that a 44-yard field goal instead of, a 55-yarder or 50-yarder. And we know what happened after that. So I just think one of the thoughts I had was that his play has taken Mahomes' return to a matter of urgency instead of emergency, right? I don't think you should feel like, the Chiefs are in dire straits because Matt Moore's going to play at Tennessee Sunday, if that becomes the case. I mean, and I think that's a lot different than people felt 2 weeks ago.
That's some Andy Reid stuff, too.
To
scheme and get him comfortable. But the play calling and all that, the structure is Andy. But the thing about Matt Moore that I've been surprised at, and look, we've mentioned this a million times, but I think I was coaching high school football in August. And I think that the number one thing that he needed to show, especially in the Denver game when he comes in cold, is just don't let the moment be too big for you. Don't let the moment be bigger than you. And he nailed that. He knocked that part of it out of the park. And then he lets basically Andy do the rest and set up some easy plays for him. And then I thought that in the Minnesota game, much more than the Green Bay game, in the Minnesota game, although they did miss some hot routes and protections and stuff, I thought the receivers helped him out a lot in the Minnesota game. That was important as well.
One quick aside, I asked Andy yesterday what he thought it would take for a guy to just come in cold like he did, and Andy's like, well, he was, throwing with his kids at the high school. I was like, oh, okay. But so he's ready.
But didn't Matt, when he signed, he was kind of like, no, I really wasn't throwing much at all. He basically, the Chiefs are trying to build him up like he's ready, and Matt's like, no.
I think it was more catching.
Nope.
He was catching quarterback. He was catching footballs, not throwing them.
Well, I thought this was a little newish yesterday. He said it in one form or another, but yesterday Matt was more blunt about this. Like, yeah, my agent wasn't even really looking for a job. I mean, I'd given up. He didn't say that, but he was not actively thinking he's looking for an NFL job.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah.
It's incredible. It's an incredible story.
Kid.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of times a backup quarterback, and I'm getting way ahead of it. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but a lot of times a backup quarterback, if a team wins the Super Bowl, the backup quarterback's just kind of along for the ride. Nick Foles, a notable exception, obviously a few years ago with the Eagles, but Matt Moore will have earned whatever part of the Chiefs' success. Matt Moore will earn that and more.
The play that really stood out to me was, first of all, Andy's comment yesterday, Moore had only been coaching this team for a week.
Right.
So it's not like he was all summer throwing footballs around with this
catching passes from his quarterback for a week.
But the play that you mentioned, I think, showed why Matt Moore has been better in this job than maybe should be expected out of the situation he was pulled into. And it's because it took a lot of smarts on the play, the play that sets up the field goal. He saw that blitz twice earlier and both times got sacked on it. One time he actually fumbled on it. And then he just said to himself before that play, and he said this post-game, I know this is what they're going to do on this play, and he was ready for it. So he saw something, adjusted to it, and I think that shows maybe why, not having played football in almost 2 years, 8 weeks into an Andy Reid playbook, which we all know is more complicated than the typical playbook, he was still able to go in there and be more serviceable than I think a lot of us thought.
Yeah.
And Tyreek was ready for it too. They had a communication there, or a nonverbal communication.
That's a good point, because that's what we thought might be the thing that you can't really get from practice and reading the playbook is the chemistry with the receivers. So that's a good point.
And to Vahe's point, yes, to turn a 51-yard field goal into a 44-yard field goal, and the 44-yard field goal was blocked.
Yeah.
Or guy got a hand on it.
Yeah,
needed it.
Hunter got a hand on that ball. I don't think that ball goes from 51.
Yeah, I think you're right.
They said they looked at the film, and the guy got just his tip of his middle finger. They said you could see it in slow-mo, just bend backwards. And he did say after the game he got it, but it certainly knuckled in such a strange way that you thought something happened on that. It's surprising that you have got enough power to still get a 44-yard field goal, no matter how slight the touch is, to still get that in.
Yeah. I mean, game of inches is such a cliche, But I mean, just 1/16 of an inch more, and that thing is probably short.
Jeremy Barnes, by the way, got back to us. He said he was actually referring to something I had said. That was correct. No, not true. It was Sam Mellinger on your point on Mahomes.
Did not like that.
Thanks for getting back.
Don't like that guy as much as I thought I did.
Mahomes probably against the Titans. We'll see. We'll wait for the practice reports to come out the next couple of days. And the Andy Reid press conference Friday is probably going to be important there, too. Even though Reid had every opportunity to rule out Mahomes each of the last 2 weeks, he wouldn't do it he wouldn't say Mahomes is not going to play when he has his last meeting with the reporters, which is Friday about 1 o'clock our time. What do you think is it in his best interest, Herbie, to continue to play that sort of deceptive game?
It's in the NFL, it's all about the competitive advantage, as they like to say. It would not surprise me one bit on Friday because that question is going to be asked point blank. Is Mahomes playing Sunday? It would not surprise me if Reid responds with, "We'll get that to you," which means you're going to have to wait.
Keep you abreast, like you said yesterday.
Yeah. We'll have to wait for another 2 hours after his presser on Friday to find out whether Mahomes is playing. But that will not surprise me one bit because last Friday we were a little surprised. It's like. It wasn't just Mahomes; it was the entire injury report. He would not officially rule anyone out, which is almost unlike him because he's very. Reid is very transparent when it comes to injuries and who's out. So when he did that last Friday, like, this is all about Mahomes.
To me, Herbie asked, I thought, probably the best question I think Andy Reid's been asked during this, which is, do you need to see the full practice for him to play? And he said no. But then. So I kind of went into this week thinking we can't read too much into it if he's only limited. But now that he practiced in full yesterday, considering one of the elements of this is to see how the knee responds to a higher workload, now I do think that getting in a full practice today and Friday is a little bit more important than maybe I thought before he got into full practice yesterday.
Here's something that was lost in that discussion with Reid when he addressed my question on that, when he basically said, this is how we've been preparing him. Like last week, if something were to happen, even though he were limited, they would have been comfortable putting him out there, which the signs are all pointing.
Right.
Rally the banners. Mahomes might be coming back.
Well, no matter who plays quarterback on Sunday for the Chiefs, they're bringing an improved defense to Tennessee. It's really been amazing from first 6 games versus the last 3 games. Now, look, Packers are part of that last 3 games, and Aaron Jones had a field day, but with 160 yards receiving, 220 or so total yards. But I thought the Chiefs played okay defense against the Packers. They were excellent against the Broncos and really good against the Minnesota Vikings. What has changed about this defense, Herbie?
There are a lot of things. I think they've stepped up against the run. By shutting down Dalvin Cook last week, full disclosure, in the press box.
How many?
In the press box, I said, over-under on Dalvin Cook, I'm going to put at 260 yards. And of course, my esteemed colleagues here started chuckling. And Sam, he only needs 200 more yards to get there the whole game. But look, that was pretty impressive. When you shut down a guy like Dalvin Cook, who entered the contest averaging 102.1 yards rushing per game, and they held him to 71 yards. That's impressive, and also their ability to get after the quarterback. They have 15 sacks and 25 quarterback hits over the last 3 games. So when you combine all that, and I know Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, had told us from the very beginning, look, I can't say what this defense is until as the season progressed. He might not know what he has until week 16, week 17, but I think we're starting to see that gel. And I know you wrote you have a column coming on Sunday, and Sam here wrote a piece yesterday on how this defense has been improving, and I think they're all right.
It's been also in the Minnesota game, the Vikings punted 8 times and had 6 3-and-outs. And we just hadn't seen that.
Yeah.
From what we have seen earlier this season was 99 rushing yards from Josh Jacobs, 103 from Melvin Ingram, 125 from Kerryon Johnson, the Tigers, the Lions, 132 from Marlon Mack, 116 from Carlos Hyde. So since then, 71 yards combined from Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, 67 rushing from Aaron Jones, but he did have the great game in the receiving. And then, as you said, 71 from Delvin Mack. Cook. But I think one thing that's changed, Herbie, is I thought that the Chiefs their linebackers got burned by the Packers, and they changed that. They fixed that against the Vikings.
Yeah, not only that, they settled on a core linebacker group. I mean, now you've got Hitchens, Damian Wilson, as well as Reggie Ragland, whereas before we were always wondering, like me specifically when I returned to Kansas City in week 4, I was like, why isn't Ragland out there? Yeah, he was seeing limited snaps on defense, contributing mostly on special teams, but now they have that core group. And Spagnuolo told us last week, I'm comfortable with this group. And they showed out against Dalvin Cook. I thought they did a really, really good job, which they're going to have to carry that over also this week. You got a guy over there in Tennessee, Derrick Henry, King Henry himself. He's going to be a challenge too.
Depending on how far into the weeds you want to get with this too, you can see, like, not just improvement in numbers and all those things, but you can see Spagnuolo, sort of make adjustments in real time. And the most obvious one, I think, was after what happened with Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
And then there were times where Dalvin Cook splits out wide and Charvarius Ward, or the boundary corner stays on that guy.
Always a corner, yeah.
And that was a clear indication. They also, Tano Passanio's lined up at nose tackle now sometimes, which is just from a guy that really wasn't in the plans a couple of years ago. And now being a real part of keeping this thing going with Frank Clark out, and before last week, Chris Jones out. I mean, there's just some real tangible, foundational pieces. Like, they're 11th in DVOA now. I mean, there's just, I'm not saying it's fixed, that it's a dominant defense or anything, but it's moments too. Like, I always say, like, I root for myself, I don't root for the team, right? But for those of us that have been saying that the defense was getting better, that 3 and out on the Vikings' last possession was important for us. For us to not have to eat those words. That was a hell of a moment.
They're getting a lot of production also and a lot of playing time out of the guys they're rotating inside. Just guys they just recently signed off the street. Mike Pennell has played a lot the last 2 games. Joey Ivey, a player they activated from the practice squad, saw 20-plus snaps against the Vikings. So the way that they're rotating the people in and the ability to kick Chris Jones from interior to outside, they've done a pretty good job.
Without all their guys. I mean, without all their guys.
Yes.
Frank Clark's been out 2 weeks. Chris Jones missed, 3 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
And Kendall Fuller's been out a couple weeks. And it's trending in the right direction, it seems like, for Fuller and Frank Clark. But still, to me, it comes back to what Sam said, the fact that so many times over the last 2 years, I thought you looked at this defense and said, they're doing the same thing that they got beat last week. They're doing the same thing they got beat 2 weeks ago. And you saw some adjustments, and I thought the Aaron Jones one, from Aaron Jones to Dalvin Cook, was the most obvious one. But Chris Jones playing on the outside when you've got guys injured, I mean, he had a couple of huge plays playing defensive end. That last drive that Sam mentions, he's playing defensive tackle, but even so, he's moving from the left to right side. It makes them a lot harder to game plan against now.
They're also helping so much more. I've talked about the safeties a lot, but those 2 guys are just so much better than what they've had before. But they're also using them in different ways than they were. And maybe that's an unfair comparison, Juan Thornhill to Ron Parker, right? But the support that those corners are given they know that they've got help on the inside, so they're going to play the guy on the outside. I mean, there's just little things like that are just it's starting to snowball in a good way.
I think, like, when you talk about the adjustments, over the past couple of seasons, what's been the biggest knock on the Chiefs defense, specifically Bob Sutton? The inability to make in-game adjustments, whereas we're seeing now with Spagnuolo, he does make those adjustments. So if you're a Chiefs fan, you have to be loving the way this defense has been trending over the last month, because you are seeing the adjustments.
Okay, David Van Zant wants to know if Laurent Duvernay-Tardif will play this week. He was, again, referring to the injury report. Was he limited on Wednesday?
Yes.
Pretty decent sign. And we know what the trend is with the Chiefs. They'll, if you've missed a couple games and you're limited 1 week, you're usually about a week away from playing. So I don't know. That's my way of saying I don't know if LTD is going to play this week. But he was out of practice last week.
Correct.
Right? So I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play this week and we saw him in Mexico City the following week.
We'll get that to you.
That's right. And Brian LaBerge wants to know if there's any news on the Frank Clark injury. That's the mysterious injury of the season, isn't it?
Herbie asked about it yesterday.
Yeah, you asked specifically about Frank Clark.
Yeah, and the good news is he did hit the practice field yesterday, and I thought what's also good is he was in the locker room. Of course, we can't talk to him in the locker room, but when players are starting to come into the locker room, that's a good sign that they are getting close to returning. Andy Reid specifically said it's not a season-ending injury, and I know Chiefs fans hate this designation, but Clark is day-to-day, and we'll just take it from there.
This is mostly speculation, but it's a little bit of informed speculation. I think that what they're doing with Frank may be that they've seen that he's not Frank Clark, and that he's dealing with something. He's trying to play through it. I have a strong suspicion that they, kind of thought, the way we've been talking about Mahomes, that you've got a 2-game lead and all this stuff, that they might thought, look, let's sit you a couple weeks and get you 100% because we're going to need you at or close to 100 in January. So instead of just trying to grind through this thing and you're limping into the playoffs, like let's get you refreshed a little bit. I wonder if that's, you know what I mean? Like kind of if it was a playoff game last week, he'd play kind of thing, but let's get you freshened up for the playoffs. I think that's what they're doing there.
The oddity of his injury is it came after his best game of the year in Denver.
Uh-huh.
But he had 2 sacks in that game, and he made it through that game clean. So maybe that
he played against the run really well that night.
Yeah,
too.
maybe that lends credibility to the fact that they wanted him to be 100%, like you mentioned, because there was nothing in that game that was glaring that he had any sort of injury.
Yeah, and Reid actually specifically addressed that because I remember that week that question was actually posed to him. Did he get hurt in the Denver game? He said no, he came out okay.
Yep.
All right, we've reached that point where, which I up until last week, I'd always looked forward to, where the rubber meets the road.
Oh boy.
And then last week happened, and I wish we had the ability to replay certain answers to this, but there was just this haunting moment last week where part of our, one of the questions was, what's your favorite Halloween candy?
Oh, goodness gracious.
And no, it was a moment that was really regrettable.
It was regrettable. Our apologies.
Yeah. My Twitter followers agree. Candy corn rocks.
It's like one person, one sick person.
What was amazing was how quickly you were denounced by all 4 of us, and it was spontaneous. That wasn't rehearsed.
It wasn't.
Unlike most of the stuff we do.
So, but we're going to continue with Where the Rubber Meets the Road. It didn't kill the segment. We're coming back with it. But
one quick thing.
The sponsor.
His candy corn pick overshadows McCole Hardman. Maybe the worst game of anybody.
Equally bad pick.
But at least he played.
He played 11 snaps.
At least he played
more than 9. He had 11 snaps on offense.
And
I love these guys. There's nothing but love here, people.
Dalvin Cook, you had a hell of a week.
260 yards.
all right, so this will be also subtitled the week where Herbie gets to redeem himself.
Let's start with him.
Yeah, we are. We're going to start with Herbie. We're where the rubber meets the road. We're going to pick a player that we think will perform well or needs to perform well in Sunday's game. We'll just leave it at that this week. No secondary questions, which exposed us to a lot of ridicule.
You're going to save the favorite Thanksgiving dish for another 2 weeks.
We will, or a movie that you're ashamed that you haven't seen yet, which was the pregame.
Not ashamed.
That's right. Maybe we'll ask that one specifically of Sam McDowell. But Herbie, we'll start with you. Rubber meets the road. Who's going to play well? Who needs to play well for the Chiefs this week?
I'm going to say it's going to be Chris Jones for a couple of reasons here. The Titans made the switch from Marcus Mariota to Ryan Tannehill, and there's a huge difference there when you think about those 2 quarterbacks. One of them is very mobile. The other one is kind of like a traditional pocket passer. Tannehill, since taking over as the starting quarterback, has been sacked 9 times, been hit 16 times over the last 3 games. Jones in that pass rush should be able to tee off against the Titans.
Okay. Sam McDowell?
I'm going to go with Damian Williams. I think that he did a lot last week to, was that yours?
It can still be.
That's not a good sign.
I thought we were in cahoots. We both are the only 2 who picked the Chiefs to win last week.
I'm gonna defer the rest of my time to Vahe.
All right, Vahe, finish the sentiment here. Damian Williams.
I will go with Damian Williams. I I tell you
good
what,
argument for us.
I know that we come out of that. I think Sam McDowell wrote about this the other day, that we should look at Damian and LaShawn McCoy as 50-50 or splitting the carries. But I think that Damian Williams has earned a certain favor at this point and reliability, and obviously showed a little burst. I mean, when the only guy that can overtake you is Tyreek Hill, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
So I like him in this game, and I think if Patrick is back, I think there'll be a little more emphasis on the run than usual. Maybe that'd be my first thought, or conservative passing, and I think that'll factor in for him.
Jarrell Casey's also banged up for the Titans, and he's the guy you worry about in the run game. So I'm sure that's why you also picked him.
I just rely completely on my gut feeling, Sam.
All right, Melly.
I'm going to use Reggie Ragland as a placeholder for the run defense.
Okay.
Look, we've talked about what they did against Dalvin Cook, but let's not pretend that, the Chiefs' run defense is just completely fixed and there's not a leak to be seen, right? I think it's important to back up. Like, how often do we hear that, you got to stack performances? And against Derrick Henry, who has the capability to destroy a defense, almost single-handedly, I think it's going to be important for the Chiefs to stop that guy.
He did here 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I'm going to say Derek Nottie. I think Derek Nottie's played really well the last couple of weeks and plug in the middle, and it's going to be so important against Derrick Henry. We can't mention it enough. One thing I was going to talk to you guys about was Sam and Vahe. You've covered the Chiefs throughout the Andy Reid era, and Herbie, you were here for the beginning of it. And Sam, you've been on it now for a while, and I've been in it for a few years. I think of teams that have haunted the Chiefs in that time, and certainly the Steelers have been one of those. But then Mahomes goes to Pittsburgh last year and throws 6 touchdown passes. It's almost like they broke the Pittsburgh curse. Yeah. And of course, the Patriots. Of course, they beat him in the playoffs twice. But Andy Reid's had a couple of great games against the Patriots. The Tennessee Titans is one team that have just kind of befuddled an Andy Reid Chiefs. He beat him the first year on that part of that 9-0 run.
The Chad Hall game.
It was in Nashville, right? Yep.
But then the next year they opened the season with the Titans, and it was a disaster. That was who was lost to ACLs that
that was DeVito and DJ.
It was Achilles.
DeVito and Derrick Johnson.
It was DeVito and Derrick Johnson.
2 players to Achilles injuries. Yep. And then the regular season game in Kansas City a couple years later, where it was freezing cold, and Ryan Suckup kicking for the Titans. Yeah. Falls short on a field goal, but Andy called a timeout and gave him a second chance, and he hits the field goal to beat the Chiefs. And then the playoff loss, what a gut-wrenching playoff loss for the Chiefs. Speaking of Derrick Henry, rushed for about 160 that game. So for whatever reason, the Titans, is there something about the way the Titans play, their identity, that hurts the Chiefs?
Well, I do think the run, that was...
It's different coaches. Yeah. I mean, it's been different coaches.
They also called a really nice play in that playoff game where they had Mariota throw a touchdown. That was a brilliant scheme up there. But, I mean, Derrick Henry, that just exposed everything. That exposed the run defense. That exposed Bob Sutton. That exposed, was that the game they had, Steve Nelson was lined up as a D end on one of the plays. It was some defensive back. I can't remember if it was Steve Nelson or somebody else. And then Derrick Henry's, well, okay, and just goes down and squeeze out the clock. I mean, I think it's a lot of things, but yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it would be nice for the just sort of not that they need confidence. I think it's a really confident group, but there would be a little bit of a statement that I think what sounds like many thousands of Chiefs fans who will be in Nashville on Sunday would love to see.
Yeah, I said for all the Vikings fans and Packers fans who are at Arrowhead the next, maybe that's a thing in the NFL now. You don't go to the home games, you sell your tickets, so you can go
on the road,
buy passage for the road games, and I bet there'll be a ton of red in the stadium on Sunday.
Yeah, there was the last time. I remember that it was a little bit of a funky schedule because Mizzou was playing Vanderbilt the night before the Chiefs played, so there was a ton of people from Kansas City, but it's a great road trip. What'd you say?
Added a couple dozen fans.
It was a lot. I remember that flight.
It was Mizzou time, is it not?
That flight was packed full of Mizzou fans.
Yeah.
I talked to a young Mizzou student on the flight out there. It was fun. Good talk. Good talk, guys.
And on that dynamic note, we're going to call it a show. Hey, it's Blair. Hey, we have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns we have to offer. And it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. For your convenience, your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. A lot of subscription services won't tell you that. They'll just sneak it on there. We just told you. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star. Please visit kansascity.com/sportsbeatkc offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.